and we appreciate the difficulty of having 3 elections so quickly together. I do have some concerns about things that I've been hearing election judges and alternate judges talking about actual things that happened to them. Last night, heard from a bunch of them that I had election judges and alternate judges who told me that the people who were showing up, at least at their precinct, to pick up their elections were temporary staff. They were just temps that nobody knew anything about. Temps showed up. Some showed up.
That's right. Here we go. Here's the truth.
Up with no ID whatsoever to show who they were. And also there was a problem that the chain of custody paperwork does not have carbons. So the person leaving with all the ballots, everything.
Representative Swanson, I have to interject and just remind the members and witnesses to kind of keep our remarks and discussion.
I'm leading there.
Topics of the agenda.
It's tying in, I promise. Okay, so they said that.
There goes Cain again, trying to stop her from asking pertinent questions.
There were no carbons, so they didn't even know, they had no proof of who they'd handed it off to. They didn't know who the person was, and they had nothing to prove what they had done. So that, I found that very concerning. Some of the things that really tied things up were, as you know, not proper page sizes. I don't know how that happened. And I know there were problems with sometimes the secondary page would not scan and the first one would. I don't know what we have to do to make it where Hart and ES&S can maybe rewrite their software and get all of Harris County's ballot on one page. It should fit easily if they could run 2 columns. It causes a lot of problems to have it on 2 pages.
Ms. Swanson, again, if we could try
I'm
and
getting there.
remarks to
I'm
address
getting
the
there.
question related to the topics.
I am because that caused a whole lot of problems.
Briscoe Cain, you suck. You suck. I hate you so much. You're such a dork. You introduce terrible legislation, and you're a dick.
And not only were they not on the right size paper, but the scanners were mini scanners for one particular party, the party I'm part of, did not work. But they would find, in fact, where I was standing outside the polls, I would talk to the technician and he would say he was sent in with scanners for the other party, but all day long our people couldn't get anything. Scanners didn't work. So what that meant was we had a tremendous number of ballots that got there that had not been scanned, and some of them couldn't be. And so our workers, such as Colleen Vera and many and others, were up there 41 hours straight at your office, or the place where central count was going on,
Ms.
having
Swanson,
to redo those.
Representative Swanson, if you could just get to a question or break these up into parts.
Who the hell put Briscoe Cain as the chair of this committee? Who did that? You're going to get censured too. And we're passing Rule 44, the amendment to Rule 44 through the SRAC. You're going to be banned from appearing on the next primary ballot for your damn trespasses.
So that we can ensure that we're remaining on the topic of this item that's before the committee.
I do feel like I am doing that. That was the end of my questions. Okay. What can we do to make sure that we don't have this problem again, so that ballots are already scanned, so we have the right paper and everything is done, and we don't have people having to spend 41 hours trying to redo these ballots by hand?
If I might, Representative, I'll take that in a couple of chunks if you don't mind, sir. Please let me know what I'm allowed to do.
Again, the thing we're discussing right now, right, is the reporting of election results following an election to determine the reasons for any delays and inaccuracies in the initial reporting of election results. So if you want somehow answer any of those questions related to that topic.
I think I see where you're going, Representative Swanson. So on the quote incorrect ballot style paper, right? If I might provide some context. Again, in Texas, we have one of the longest ballots, and in Harris County, one of the longest ballots in the nation. Mm-hmm. For the hard equipment we have right now, it's an optical scan, which means we opted to have a machine that doesn't hide the information in a barcode what you see printed on that paper is what the machine itself reads. So it reads it optically and then creates that record so that when the voter is voting, they know what they voted or have submitted on that paper is exactly what the machine is reading. To do that, we have to have text at a certain size. We've already worked with Hart, but I'm sure they would be happy to meet with you, Representative. If you make the text so small that it compresses everything into one ballot, it would be so microscopically thin, neither a voter could read it, and it would cause potentially more reading errors with the machine to have to distinguish between microscopically thin text, the size of lines that are right next to each other. So while I'm elections administrator, I think it would be a really unfortunate idea to try and get down to that microscopic text, and I think it would create even more issues. To add into context, the one location, I believe it is one location that got the short paper instead of the long paper. Once they called it into us, we delivered it to them, and as I know, it was isolated to just that location. So that means for 749 other sites, we got it right. And trust me, my supply team heard about it. So that is not something I take lightly, nor am I trying to make light of it now, but it was an extremely isolated incident and not something we want any voter to have to go through.
Real quick, Mrs. Longoria, to tie that back into our topic, did that result in causing any delays in the result?
On the two-page, it has come up because the more two-page ballots you have, the more likely they are need to be replicated at the central warehouse. And I'll get into.
Wow, she actually did a good job of tying this point back to what Briscoe Cain's trying to restrict this committee hearing to. I mean, all of these issues link back to the delay and the inaccuracies in reporting. All of them do. And his attempt to strain out facts so that he can control the narrative and tell everybody that everything's fine and that he's managing our state elections like a champion. No, he is like a 12-year-old. Look at the guy. How old is Briscoe Cain? I swear, he's like 12. And he's acting like it too. So no, that's not what we're talking about. We're not going to talk about that.
This example here. So for example, you go in and vote Representative Cain, you put your two pieces of paper in. The first one scans just fine, but the second one, for whatever reason, papers, they catch, they whatever. There's some options there, right? If it's one piece of paper and just one piece of paper ballot, there's a process for the judge to spoil that on site, to immediately give their voter a new piece of paper and to have them vote. When it's two pieces of paper, we consulted with Secretary of State, with Hart, our county attorney, that for us, if we said, okay, spoil both pieces of paper on site, right? And then we tell the judge, give that voter back two more blank pieces of paper, send them back to the machine, and make sure they give you that first piece of paper back. Because we don't want to scan that first piece of paper, because on their first attempt, their first ballot paper already scanned. So on the second attempt, we don't want them to scan that first piece of paper. We want them to only scan that second piece of paper.
Are you following? Are you following the logic, guys?
With 750 judges and all that they have to do and all the voters that they have to watch, I would be concerned at the potential for accidental double voting if for whatever reason that voter thought, oh no, I'll just put both pieces of paper back in. That's all to say it then dictates our process of having any two-page paper issue come back to our office so that the Democratic and Republican Central Count Committee, they themselves in tandem by law, review every ballot, replicate it to the standard of the voters, and have it counted so we can avoid any double counting issues. And this, Representative Swanson, is where we get back to the issue of 2 pages versus 1 page, that we are locked into 2 pages because it's better for the voter in accuracy and transparency and security of their vote in this new paper system. And I would prefer our Central Count Committee then be in charge of 2 pieces of paper instead of depending on 750 judges out at the site who, God bless them, we put so much on them already that I never want them to accidentally help a voter cast 2 votes. So I believe that was part 1. If you don't mind, Representative, I think I'm getting to the other ones. In the context of March 1st, I will say there were only 1,629 of these ballots that had issues that had to be returned to the central count. That is of nearly over 500,000 ballots, which would have accounted for close to 750,000 pieces of paper. So that is less than 1%, less than 1% of 1% of the ballots that came back to central count had to be replicated or otherwise taken care of. But to your point, when you're in Harris County, less than 1% of 1% is 1,000 or so votes. And that's where we talk about the volume, the size of Harris County and having to deal with these issues. And I also appreciate that for those 1,600 voters, that's 100% of their vote. And their vote should be taken care of with as much thoughtfulness as we can give the Central Count Committee the time to do. I believe that was part one, so I'm getting to the part twos. I've got them written down here.
I do have a follow-up on one of those.
Yes, ma'am.
One of them was, I had election judges expressing that they did not feel that they had the option to carry their own results in. They felt forced to do that, and they felt like they were breaking the law by not taking it in. So what, for these next elections, are you going to tell them they have the option, or that they felt like they'd be in trouble, but they felt like they were breaking the law? So tell me what they should do.
Some judges ended up electing to come in and drop off their results, and we took those results. I'm not going to turn away a judge who
Can you
brings-
make it clear to them that they are free to bring them in?
Yes, it's a bit of a catch-22 for us, if I might. What we have heard every
Is it a catch-22 to decide to follow the law or decide to blatantly violate it? What a position you must find yourself in. Does Keith Ingram have a knife to your back? I mean, where's the catch-22? You turn around, you're going to walk into a blade? What is it?
election, over 65% of our judges say is, I don't want to work again if I have to drive all the way down to NRG from Katy to drop off these results. So it's a catch-22, right? This is obviously the first election. We can approach them for the next election and ask them if they would feel more comfortable dropping it off themselves. Yeah. But it's a catch-22, right, of, or you allow us to put a system in place so every location is treated equitably, or we've got to do more organizing to see which judges would prefer to turn them in themselves.
Rather, Ms. Longoria,
yes.
considering part of the topic is to make recommendations for this. If you have a recommendation for us, and then I'm sure the Secretary of State's office will be up later.
Wow, guys, they're taking recommendations from somebody who's literally never managed elections before. And the only election she's managed, she's completely bungled. And Briscoe Cain just solicited recommendations from her. Do you have any recommendations as to how we could have done a better job? Stupid as Briscoe Cain. I fucking hate that guy.